Hello and welcome. The Indian IT industry has been riding a bit of a hype curve, at least some people think so. The more important thing is it's coming off the hype curve, and then we're focused more on reality and the opportunity. So between the two, what's next? And that's the question I'm posing to Phil Fersht, founder of HFS Research. Phil, thank you very much for joining us once again. So Phil, you've been talking about a lot of good things that's been happening to the Indian IT industry. For instance, how the size of deals are becoming larger.
Yes.
A lot of companies are doing billion-dollar deals. But on the other hand, equally, you feel that there has been a lot of hype that's been driving it, and expectations have been moving ahead of what the delivery is. Why is that?
Well, I think IT has always traditionally thrived from being a little overhyped, and then people getting very excited, and sometimes the best technologies are the ones that can escape the hype spotlight, so to speak, and come rearing into action when they have real practical use cases. So with IoT, the Internet of Things, there was a lot of hype around IoT 3 or 4 years ago, and that was like all they talked about at Nasscom back then. And then it went a little quiet for a while, and then what's happened in the meantime is many of the service providers and many big enterprises have found practical uses to really industrialize IoT, and it's now a really mainstream part of the supply chain and the industry. And I really hope the same is happening, for example, with blockchain, which had a lot of noise and hype last year, and is now has a lot of companies putting a lot of money into it to try and develop and build business cases. So when it re-emerges, it'll be in a much more workable, sort of exciting way.
And would you say the same thing for artificial intelligence as well?
AI is in a fairly interesting place. I mean, it's been around for a long time, and the problem with AI is it's in danger of becoming a bit of a catch-all phrase like digital became, and I think it needs a lot more definition and focus, because it is really a conglomeration of different technologies like machine learning, augmented reality, computer vision and machine learning, etc. And so I think it's how do you define a collection of things that are all tied to basically IT and virtual reality. So.
No, for instance, robotic process automation, something that you've written about as well and talked about. So that was seen as a new way to, let's say, improve and make more efficient processes, but that's not really happened, or it's not worked in the way people thought it would work.
I think it's more the latter. No, I think robotic process automation has been successful because it's one of the first times a non-IT enterprise user has started to really develop applications using sort of low-code types technology solutions. Now there has been a struggle because it does need a true partnership between technology and business to make it work. And also part of the appeal of RPA is that it actually breathes new life into sometimes legacy systems, like mainframes and green screen computers and things like that. So it actually gets investors excited because it can actually help enterprises stave off very costly investments, because RPA can actually make things work and keep them functioning for longer. So in many ways, the hype was going in the wrong direction for RPA, and it's a much more practical, useful technology, but it might not have some of the far-reaching implications that people thought it would have.
Right. So what's happening beneath the radar today that you see playing out, particularly that could be of benefit to Indian IT services companies, and if they can capitalize on it?
Well, I just think India and brand India has become so strong in the last decade, and especially the last 5 years, in terms of providing talent. And I think even 5 years ago, India was probably a little bit too beholden to providing talent for things like SAP and Oracle, and that's changed a bit now to emerging RPA. We were talking about machine learning, data science, and things like that. So I think there's more RPA developers in India than anywhere else in the world right now, and RPA is one of the hottest technologies in the market. And India is the hotbed for talent, and will continue to be so because of the work ethic and the mindset. And people are very unafraid to tackle and learn new things in this country. So.
And that's interesting. So, apart from RPA, do you see other areas that are emerging in terms of the talent capability and the ability to deliver?
Yes, absolutely. So machine learning and algorithm development are very important, and it does require some different background, some different mindset. It's not your traditional computer science graduate who is just jumping on algorithms and becoming expert overnight, but we are seeing quite a lot of smart developers and executives starting to really take it on board and develop skills and provide capabilities in some of these areas, analytics as well. areas like natural language processing, integration areas as well, managing islands of cloud and sort of re-platforming the enterprise, these types of things. So, I'm seeing India talent crop up all over the place. In fact, if anything, it's becoming quite expensive because there's a lot of higher end talent and pushing each other here. So,
right. So in some ways, then, if you were to look back, let's say 3 or 4 years, things while the anticipation may be ahead of the curve, the delivery seems to be more or less matching the curve.
I think delivery has really picked up, and when I look at the big heritage Indian IT firms like HCL, Cognizant, Wipro, TCS, Tech Mahindra, etc., I think a lot of them are now being deployed at doing much higher value services than they were even 5 years ago. And we call them like mode 3, for example, actually being entrusted to take on entire operations and not just outsourcing little pieces of operations or transactional pieces. So when we talk about some of these billion-dollar deals, we've seen Wipro and TCS and others pick up, and Infosys as well. I think some of that is because they're being entrusted with more, and the customers are taking more risk, and they're taking more risk with them as well. So I think it's been a real upping of the game and the quality, and that's why in the last year we've seen a good pickup in the Indian IT market when people were maybe expecting it to bottom out. So.
Right, and if I were to ask you to give us a little bit of prognosis on the demand side, what's happening amongst customers, businesses in big markets like America, and how could that potentially play out for clients here? Okay,
well, the UK is a bit of a dead market right now, unfortunately, but the American market is red hot. There's a real talent shortage, particularly for technology, and there's a real appetite to work more with top providers. And I think some of the Indian heritage firms have done a fantastic job investing in actually onshore resources in America, as well as their own resources around the world and in India. And I think there's a familiarity and a desire to increase investments that I've never seen before. I mean, if you saw the noises coming out of Davos recently with CEOs talking about AI and technology as core to their businesses, that's why the spending is continuing to increase, the complexity is increasing, and the determination is increasing. And I think as the economy continues to do well, touch wood, we'll continue to see healthy investment in Indian and other global IT firms.
Right. Last question. So you've also talked about 5G and hypercloud being, sort of network enablers or transformers, and the transformation capability of these new technologies or networks. So, can you give us some more insight or throw some more light on that?
Well, obviously, hypercloud is massive. We've seen Amazon really becoming a provider mainstream, the leading cloud provider actually in the world, and I think it's driven IBM to make big investments in cloud as well, and we're seeing some of the Indian firms continuing to push their capabilities. So the shift to the cloud it's been 10, 15 years in the making, but it now is happening in reality. So that's a big business and a big bet that a lot of companies are making. 5G enables mobility to a level we've never seen before. I think Wi-Fi, for example, was only ever supposed to be an interim technology while we were waiting for 3G 20 years ago. I don't know if you remember that. And it just stayed. It was, this stuff works. It's hyper speed. 5G, I think, can finally make that shift back to a hyper speed mobile network and maybe reduce our reliance on being tethered so much to Wi-Fi networks and other things. So the applications and the potential are enormous when you start to look at the capabilities it can deliver.
That's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much, Phil, for speaking with us.
Okay, thank you.